had just graduated from high school. I kind of ran away from home. I had a friend who had to get married soon after we graduated, and she was the only person I trusted to tell I was in this predicament, because I knew that she had sex too, because, you know, she had gotten married. She was one of the lucky ones, but then unfortunately lost the baby. She was the only person I told I was pregnant, because it was such a shameful thing to be, you know, unmarried and pregnant. And this was 1970 when I got pregnant, 1971 when I gave birth. So a few years after her, but still prior to Roe v. Wade, where, you know, abortion was not an option. Unless it was illegal and your life was in jeopardy. And I had some friends that had gone through that experience. I had a friend that almost died from an abortion, an illegal abortion. So, you know, that just was not an option for me. I was gonna run away, live with my friends, have my baby, live happily ever after with my baby, you know. I had left a note from my parents' dresser. They had gone out to dinner that night, and I snuck out. And, they came and got me right away. I was about 3 months pregnant at that point. And then before I know it, my mom again took over. I was told one morning that we had a meeting to go to, and got in the car. I just went along for the ride, and we ended up at St. Anne's, which is in Los Angeles. Had a meeting with the social worker there. They had a vacancy. Like 2 days later, I was gone. And because I had just graduated from high school, I went into St. Anne's in January of 1971. It's kind of the beginning of a new semester. You know, I could go away to school. I don't even remember where I was supposed to be away at school, but it was quite an education at the maternity home. I was there for 6 months, which was pretty long. You know, I was there during I'm looking at the faces around here, probably weren't around then, but 71 earthquake out in the valley. There was quite a bit of damage in the Los Angeles area, and for years I could not talk when people talk about the 71 earthquake. I was in a maternity home. You know, it was hard for me to tell my earthquake story, you know. One of the things that I wasn't prepared for when I gave birth was falling in love with my child. The whole time you're there, you're being sent away, you know, to have your baby, put it up for adoption. There was no questions asked. That's why we were there. So no one would ever have to know about this story. I didn't have to shame my family. You know, I could make believe I went away to school. I could come back and everything would be fine. I'd get on with my life and everything would be wonderful, you know. But then I gave birth. And I fell madly in love with my daughter, even though I couldn't hold her. I was standing behind the glass looking at her. Because I was Catholic and I was in a Catholic home, we were able to have our children baptized. And I did that so I could hold her. That was the one time I got to hold her, and during her baptism. And I did go twice to the adoption agency to see her. So I had some pictures of her that I took at the adoption agency. But I just could not sign my papers. I tried every which way to figure out a way to keep her. She was 3 months old before I signed relinquishment papers. She was in foster care. That was the norm back then. All babies went into a foster home, and even if it was a week later, that was a transition period, you know. I relinquished to the adoption agency. The adoption agency became the custodian of my child until, you know, she was adopted. I waited 3 months to do that and tried every which way, and finally I just gave in. So when I say I surrendered, because that's what I did. I just gave up. I couldn't do it anymore. And then I proceeded to put the wall up, convince myself that I had done this thing, because the whole time everybody tells you how selfish you are for even thinking about raising your child. What a horrible person I was for wanting to raise my own child, which seems so crazy to me now. But so I drank the Kool-Aid and tried to get on with my life. And I think now in hindsight, I lived this kind of parallel life. I had two lives I was living. I was living this lie, and then I was living this life that somebody else wanted me to have. And neither one of them were authentic. I got pregnant again quickly by the same guy. And it's interesting, a lot of birth mothers get pregnant quickly. Either they get married the second time, they'll have an abortion, they'll parent, or they'll relinquish. I did a workshop on it many years ago, and we surveyed a lot of people. It was very, very interesting how many birth parents got pregnant again. The second time, I was determined that nobody was going to tell me what to do. Even if it was relinquishment, I really did not know what I was going to do. It's just this time I was going to be in control. I moved out of the house, was living with a friend of mine, chose to parent my child, which was a son. One of the experiences I had when he was born was, he was born at St. Joe's in Burbank. And he, one of the administrator, some big wig nun, would go around and visit the patients, and she came in my room, and I was in a room with 4 beds. Everybody else was neatly married, I was the only single one. And I was nursing my son, and she came in and she has my chart, and she's looking at my chart, and she's, reading it, and she's going, "Oh, I see this is your second child, And me being the good little Catholic girl that I was, we respect those women in black. And I said, yes, I had a daughter that I put up for adoption. And she's looking down like this, while she's talking to me. And then when I said I put my daughter up for adoption, she looked up at me and she says, "Oh, and you're keeping this one?" And I said, "Yes." And she put her head down and went, "What a shame. When there are so many parents waiting to adopt." So, the shame of keeping my child was still there, this selfish person. I became very militant. I was not going to ask my parents for anything. I was going to do this on my own. I would never ask anybody for help. I was just so determined that I was going to prove that I could do this. And I did, and my mom would help me out. My father eventually just wouldn't have anything to do with me and totally disowned me. My mom would sneak over and see me once in a while, and she would bring me things, but that was totally on her. I never asked her for anything. I refused. If I was eating beans and rice, I wouldn't ask her for food, because I was going to do this on my own. I was going to prove it, I've been very determined that way ever since, and I know it goes back to me being determined that I could do this and nobody can help me. I don't take help very easily, even to this day. When my son was about 5 or 6, I was in a new relationship, was using birth control. I heard you say got pregnant on birth control. I got pregnant again. I was just like crazed. Didn't know what I was going to do, because I drank the Kool-Aid about this, wonderful thing I had done and relinquished before. Adoption came up, and I thought maybe that's what I need to do. And because I didn't know how I was going to raise 2 kids by myself, and I was convinced that's what I was going to do, was have to. I didn't even consider the fact that I was in this relationship with this man who was pretty supportive, and we continued our relationship after we had this child. But I didn't feel like I could depend on anybody but myself, and I didn't know how I was going to do it with two kids on my own. So I relinquished my second daughter. I did, though, I breastfed her when she was born. And that was those were the days when you were in the hospital for 3 days when you had a baby, and so I had her with me for 3 days, and then I went to see her at the adoption agency about a week later, and I had milk up to here, and she was very, very fussy, and they said, oh, she just ate, but she's just a really fussy baby, and so when they left me alone in the room with her, I fed her again, and I think we were talking about this the other day. I will never forget her staring up at me like, where have you been? I mean, this little face was just staring at me like, there you are, And I was just devastated after that. And one of the things that happened to me with both of those relinquishments was when I came home from the maternity home, I came home from school. Nobody knew what I had gone through. I wasn't allowed to mourn. I wasn't allowed to have any feelings. I wasn't allowed to discuss it. It was something that would never be discussed again. You go on with your life. You don't talk about it. When I had my second daughter, I was a mom. I fell apart one night, and I had to really pull myself back from the brink because I had a 6-year-old son that I had to raise. So I stuffed it all up again. So I never truly mourned the loss of my children and stuffed all those emotions for years and years